All right, we are recording. So welcome to Dr. Larry Walker. Larry has been kind enough to agree to a videotaped interview that we can use for our students in the cable program. And my hope is that we'll be able to use it not just this year, but every year that we do this program so that all students will benefit from this conversation. Larry, can you start by just giving us a little background on your career, kind of a highlighted overview?
Okay, well, very quickly, I'm a graduate of Michigan State University. That's my alma mater. In physics at the undergraduate level and in agricultural engineering at the master's and PhD level. Took me a little while to find out what I wanted to do with my life. I spent the bulk of my career at Cornell University. I was a professor at Cornell for 35 years, and I retired in 2015. During the time at Cornell, I rose to full professor there. I was a program leader for the Nanobiotechnology Center at Cornell. I directed the Northeast Sun Grant Initiative at Cornell, which was the regional bioenergy bioproduct initiative. And I was also director of the Biofuels Research Laboratory. So this whole area around bioeconomy, science and technology has been part of my career. I am currently the co-editor-in-chief for a journal called Industrial Biotechnology. And that gives me a lot of connection with companies, and I'm doing some work in India, but more about that maybe a little bit later.
Okay, wonderful. What do you think are the leadership habits that really helped you in your career?
Being open to new possibilities. Okay, I would put it at the very top of my list. If you're going to lead and you're going to innovate, you've got to be open to new possibilities. Also, something I learned at Michigan State was to have a holistic picture. Okay, think globally, act locally. So taking the big picture, but then eventually you got to focus in on the mission at hand. And then the other part of that is working with people. I'm a firm believer that there's nothing more enjoyable than working with noble people on noble endeavors. And a lot of things that we're trying to do with the bioeconomy, a lot of things that we're trying to do around sustainable human development is very much about working with teams of people to get the mission accomplished.
Okay, so in those teams, I'm going to just follow up a little bit. In those teams that you worked with, what did you think were really good, like sub-leadership habits beyond just having teamwork kind of as a priority in your life? What are some leadership habits that help when you're working with teams?
First and foremost, being able to listen to others and hear the stories that they have to tell. When you're nucleating teams, you've got to find a way to connect with people. And people come from their background, from their discipline. Hopefully, they'll be able to go beyond their discipline. But you need to be able to listen to understand where you can make those connections and what they bring to the table that you don't bring to the table.
That's important. Okay, thank you.
So listening is a very, very important part of it.
Yeah, I hear that kind of as a thread throughout all of your answers so far. Kind of being open to new possibilities requires a lot of listening as well. I know you're a strong proponent of mentoring. When I talked with Corey about you, that was something she really identified. How did you identify with and engage with mentors in your career?
I was very fortunate throughout my career to have a terrific group of mentors, both at Michigan State, even at time at Cornell with some of my faculty mentors who mentored me when I was coming along, and some of the folks I've interacted with government and industry. So mentors have been very, very important to me. I've tried to return that gift in mentoring young people and young professionals throughout my career. As a Cornell professor, I have a ready-made platform for mentoring through classroom activities. But what I really enjoyed at Cornell was mentoring students outside of the classroom, especially when I could have them work with me on research and development projects in the lab, whether they were undergraduates or graduate students. And the real plus there is that you can spend a lot of quality time with them. You have more time to engage them than you often have in a classroom. So that was very, very big for me. And then also being able to listen to people who are different from me. So my major professor, who I met my freshman year, was Dutch. He didn't look like me. His world perspective was very different from my perspective. And so being able to bridge those gaps to make a connection and come up with some common shared values and perspective, I think is important.
I would agree. I think one of the things that our students might love advice on is how to ask someone to be a mentor, or how to identify and then, engage with them. I think that's the hardest part, is maybe feeling like you're going to be a burden on their time, or wondering if they'd be open to it. How do you suggest they go about that?
So there's two things I tell students about selecting mentors. First of all, choose wisely. Okay? Because we usually choose for the wrong thing. So we usually choose a person because maybe their science is interesting to me. Okay, all right, that's not the wrong thing, it's a good thing. But realize that mentors don't have to be in your field of study. Okay, number one. Number two, realize that mentors are human beings just like we are. Okay. And so you need to understand that they have their strengths and weaknesses, and you want to learn about their strengths and their weaknesses. And finally, with your mentors, you want to, how do I want to say this? Definitely be open to someone that does not look like you. They bring a new set of perspective to the table that often can inform how you move forward. Like I said, my major professor was Dutch. He didn't look like me.
Right. Yeah. Do you find that most often, if a student approaches you and says, I love what you do, I feel like I'm learning a lot from you, and I'd really like to kind of engage in a more formal mentoring relationship with you, is that something that if a student came to you and had that kind of conversation, would you have responded positively?
Yes and no. Okay. So I am predisposed to want to interact with students, but I have how would say, a method for deciding whether it's a good connection. Okay. First and foremost, I ask the student, "Are you sure I'm the right person?" Okay. And you can imagine the look they get on their face.
That's a tough question.
The second question I usually ask them is, "What have you failed at?" Okay. And most students will respond, say, "Look at my transcript. I haven't failed at anything." And I say to them, "If you work for me, you're going to fail." Okay. And what I'm trying to convey to them is that if you're going down new endeavors and trying things, there's no guarantee that you're going to be successful.
That's right.
In the research and development environment, you don't want a person falling apart when they have their first failure.
Yep.
Okay. Now, it means on my part, I need to be cautious about how I manage their failure.
Yeah.
As we move forward. So there's a two-way street with that. But I have always been methodical about how I bring people into my research group, okay, and to other projects I've been involved in. The other thing I tell all students, the only thing that a professor can tell you is no. Okay. Now, most likely they'll say yes, but it says no, find someone else. Okay. Yep. And at our great universities around the country, Cornell, Michigan State, Ohio State, you name them, there are a lot of really good professors who are willing to engage students. So you just keep knocking on the doors until you find someone you're willing to work with.
That's great advice, because I think that applies for industry as well. The worst thing they can do is say no. So asking doesn't hurt.
Okay. You're not going to stop if someone tells you no, okay?
Exactly. If you are going to stop when someone tells you no, you might be entering into the wrong field.
That's for sure. Yeah. But it takes a certain strength of character to keep knocking on the door. And again, in universities, by and large, professors enjoy engaging people. In companies, it's in their best interest to get people engaged and fully involved in the activities of the company. It's good business sense for them.
I would agree. One thing, I'm going to switch gears. One thing we hear a lot about in the bioeconomy is innovation. And I know you've done some specific thinking about what that buzzword really means, because it's thrown around a lot. Can you share your insights on what innovation is and what innovators do?
So as you might imagine, innovation is not a buzzword for me. Okay. It's a process. It's a process of working together with different disciplines to solve a problem. Okay. It's not just science. People tend to equate science with innovation. Science is discovery. Innovation is about addressing a problem, meeting a need. And to meet that need, you need to interact with a lot of different players. to meet that need. And so I'm an engineer. Okay, engineers are often called in to solve a problem, but we're never working by ourselves. We have to work with business folks. Sometimes we have to work with scientists. We have to work with people in the policy landscape. Environmental concerns often influence how we innovate. So it's a process. It's a team process, and we tend to underestimate the role of the team in carrying out the innovations. We like to have one champion who's driving all of the innovations, but in reality, it's a team who understand a need to be met. So that's an important part for me with innovation. For the bioeconomy, we are looking at a revolution going on in the life sciences and life sciences technology. So yes, science is an important part of it, but it's still deploying the science to meet a need, whether it's addressing water quality issues, whether it's producing biodegradable polymers to go into consumer products, or whether it's producing energy, we're meeting needs.
It's interesting to me how people are at the root of almost every question, every response you give. And I hope our students are catching that, because it's really important, the way your brain works. I love that people are at the heart of almost every answer, because even when you say that innovation is working as a team to meet a need, in order to meet that need, you have to understand the need, which means understanding people who have that need. You know, it all circles back to listening and understanding people at every stage, kind of.
Let me pick up on that. So I just got back from India a couple of weeks ago. I'm doing some activities in India, and I'm going into a foreign culture, a foreign social dynamic. Okay. For me to go in and say, I've got the answer for you is kind of scary. Okay. So what you do is that you had to go in and work with people to understand how the cultural dimension, the social dimension, influence your ability to address a need, to address a problem. So it's very much a human enterprise. Even scientific research, we like to think of it as being objective and logical. It's very much a human enterprise.
I would agree with that.
Everything we do is human enterprise.
I would agree with that. Can you talk to us about the business skills and the leadership habits that you think would be most likely to help a job applicant or a new employee?
Let me look at my notes here real quick.
That's okay. I'm jumping over the team question because we've kind of hit that one. But what business skills and leadership habits would help somebody stand out if they were applying for a job or they were a new employee?
First and foremost, going to the interview, having done your homework. Understand what the organization, what the company is all about. Its products, the challenges they're facing, what kind of markets they're going to move into. If it's not a company, if it's a regional economic development group, what kind of challenges they're looking at. But first and foremost, understand what the needs are. Go into the interview willing to listen to the questions very carefully that's being posed to you, listening very carefully to the comments that are being shared with you. They're telling you a story about what's important for the organization. So listening and then reacting is an important part of that interview process. And again, being able to think globally, the holistic need of the company or the organization with what you specifically bring to the table. And being open to new possibilities.
Okay.
So being open to new possibilities is high on my list.
And once they're on board, I know you've talked to me a little about the importance of professionalism in today's society and how that might be kind of a lost art in a way, you know, with thinking about not just the way you lead others, but the way you live your life and the way you model professionalism. What thoughts do you have on that for our students?
Well, professionalism is a way of a process in which you work with people. Okay. And it involves having mutual respect for the people that you're working with. It doesn't mean that you're going to compete with them, okay? But there's got to be some mutual respect in order for people to come together to work together. Without that, you don't have a foundation. Okay? How you communicate with people is an important part of that mutual respect. How open are you to hearing the other side of the issue is an important part of that. So professionalism is there not just to be nice, professionalism is there in order for the engagement to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
Because without professional respect, without being able to communicate and listen to others,
Mm-hmm.
you cannot accomplish the mission, period.
Agreed. Agreed. And I think sometimes people boil professionalism down to, am I here on time? Did I respond to emails in a timely manner? They boil professionalism down to like following rules. And
No,
it's so much a part of the way you interact with people as well. And
very much so. Okay.
I think that's really important.
And in the age where we're trying to address global sustainability challenges around the world, our ability to work with others and show that type of respect becomes essential.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. One thing I want to make sure we have time to talk about is kind of the bioeconomy landscape. You've had advisory roles with both industry and government on the biotechnology, natural products, climate. From your perspective, what skills gaps will biotech companies be facing in the next 10 to 20 years?
I would phrase it a little bit differently.
Okay.
So it's not so much a skill set, it's about your ability to adapt to a changing landscape. So I have to remind young people that innovation opportunities don't follow a smooth trajectory. We have what we call ebb and flow.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go back 10 years ago, biofuels were hot, and that was driving a lot of the industrial biotechnology innovation. Well, guess what happened? We've got a lot of cheap natural gas and oil, and the landscape changes. And so you can understand why people begin to lose some of their enthusiasm. Now, it doesn't mean that biofuels won't play an important role in the future, but you've got to be able to adapt to the ebb and flow of innovation. Okay, like that. So that's key. The other part of that is communication.
Mm-hmm.
One of the exciting part of being part of this journal, Industrial Biotechnology, and working in industry is hearing all the great stories going on. Okay, and one of the things that we need to do more and more is share those stories with young people, old people. Understand that we are being successful in addressing some of these challenges, whether they're water quality challenges or whether they're coming up with biodegradable polymers.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, we also need to understand that there's a cultural and social dimension to everything that we do in business, and how the French might react to a certain product may be very different from how the Americans. So being able to understand the nuances in different parts of society and in different parts of the world, I think it's important for driving the bioeconomy. It's global. It's not like 30 years ago where the bulk of innovation might have come out of American companies. Innovation is taking place in India, China, Japan, Brazil. Some of the most exciting work in the bioeconomy is being done in Brazil these days.
Really?
Around the fact that they've got the sugarcane industry, and they've been at it for a long time. The Brazilians started in the 70s pushing the bioeconomy around their field needs. And so understanding the landscape and how it's a dynamic landscape, it's not a static landscape, and that you have to be nimble and adaptable as you move forward in trying to innovate and trying to drive the economy.
Yep. I think nimble and adaptable is so important. I think I was trying to think of the right word, and you really hit it. That's exactly what was going through my mind, is that so often we tell students to, go in and do your job really well, and then you'll advance through the company if you show good leadership skills and things like that. But I think there's an added piece to it, which is understanding the full bioeconomy, like learning outside of your lane. That way, when opportunities come up, you've understood that side of things as well. Just like when you're talking about the biofuels industry shrinking a little bit, and the other side, biotech industry growing more. If you took time to educate yourself outside of your lane, you'd be more able to adapt and be flexible and have opportunities.
So one of the things that my mentor did for me growing up is he made me. This was my PhD mentor. He suggested I read newspapers. Okay, and he suggested I read outside my technical area.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and what he was trying to say is the real challenges out there are being talked about. Mm-hmm. People are writing about them. They're in the pages of the newspaper. Those challenges may be a little bit different in Mumbai, India, than they are in central New York, but the stories are there. And you need to be listening to those stories to see where those opportunities for you to come in and innovate. And so all of my undergraduates and all of my graduate students have heard me say, read newspapers.
Sure.
Read outside of your technical discipline. Try to get a holistic picture of what's going on in the world.
I think that also reaches back to your earlier comment about finding a mentor even outside of your discipline.
Yes.
You know, if you enter a company, don't look for your boss to be your mentor. Find a mentor in another department, or
exactly.
Somebody who can be more globally focused.
And still remember, they're human beings.
Yeah.
They have their strengths and their weaknesses. We're not perfect.
Right. So my last question is one that Denny thought was really important, because we want to make sure that students have a realistic expectation as they enter their jobs. We hear a lot of talk about how quickly the bioeconomy is growing. Can you share kind of a realistic assessment from your perspective of what is the economic growth potential of bioeconomy, and what does the job outlook really look like?
Well, I think the bioeconomy is going to be hot because of sustainability challenges. So whether you talk about improving water quality or making biodegradable polymers, we're looking at deploying advanced life science paradigms and technology to address these problems. And these problems are not going away.
No.
As a matter of fact, I used to tell my students, we used to be happy we have all of these global problems because, wow, that means that someone needs to step up to the plate and solve them and have jobs to get these problems solved. So the bottom line is that I think the bioeconomy is exciting because we bring in this revolution that's going on in biology. Now, I haven't said that. It's not just biology. It's material science. It's applied and engineering physics. It's agricultural engineering. Okay, all of this is coming together in a holistic way to address global challenges. And I grew up at MSU at a time when we were talking about limits to growth. That was a book that was very popular in '73, talking about all of these challenges with population, food, the environment. Those challenges are there. How do we innovate to meet those challenges? So I'm actually very optimistic about the future for the bioeconomy, because I think the bioeconomy is going to help us address a lot of these challenges, especially if you start adding this green dimension on that. So the bioeconomy, all around the world, people are looking for biodegradable polymers that are not going to pollute the environment. Okay? That's going to be exciting. The energy landscape is constantly shifting. At the moment, like I said, we have cheap natural gas and oil. That makes it more difficult for biofuels to compete. But energy needs for our society will continue, and we'll continue to do bioenergy. But it's more than bioenergy. It's more than biodegradable polymer. It's environmental quality issues and how we're going to address those. And so I get very optimistic about the future. But you get to remember, ebb and flow. Okay, it's not the perfect trajectory.
Oh, sure. Yeah, it's not going to go straight up.
No, but it's not. Okay. And that's the hard part with young people, especially when you first get started. When you're an old guy like me, you see things start and shut down and start and shut down. So you come to expect that. But when you have your first encounter where things, you're working, you put your heart and soul into it, and then all of a sudden, the interest is winding down. You sit there, what is happening? And you just have to realize that's the natural part of innovation and development.
Oh, sure. Well, and even when, I think you're raising such an important issue, because even when the thing you're working on may not be relevant or exciting to people anymore because there's some other new thing out there, if students have done, or if people have done what you've advised and made themselves kind of more globally aware of what's going on, they can take what they learned from that project and apply it elsewhere. It's still relevant to their career, very much so.
So undergraduate education is a platform to grow. Okay. Whether it's in business, economics, engineering, physics, chemistry, it's a platform. Once you have that platform, you don't stop learning, you don't stop growing through your career. If you do, you become obsolete very quickly. So the important thing for young people to understand is their ability to take in new subject matter and
Mm-hmm.
work it is going to be important to their career.
Mm-hmm.
That is what the undergraduate experience is going to give you, the ability to take in and to learn things. And then when you leave the undergraduate program, you're going to continue to learn. And you talk with people who work in the business side in the industry, they say it's a perpetual learning process for
Mm-hmm.
them. They have to continue to grow, or otherwise they become obsolete within the company.
Yep, absolutely.
And so young people have to be prepared that it's a lifelong education process for
Yes.
them to continue to grow and to develop as human beings.
Yeah, there's no I've arrived moment. Like, I've arrived, I'm done, I'm fully cooked.
No,
Yeah.
never.
When that happens, you're done.
You're done. And then life gets very boring.
Yeah.
Okay, and so those of us who are fortunate to get an undergraduate education, we are blessed because we can continue to grow and develop in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
We should never forget that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the strengths of the American universities, is that we have this ability of taking people from very diverse backgrounds. I grew up in inner city Detroit. My world was that big.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And over a period of time, bring you to a point where we begin to engage the world in a much more sophisticated and much more thoughtful way with that. And all of our universities are very good at doing that. With American universities, this whole concept of mentoring is a very important part of that environment. Michigan State served me well with a group of about a dozen mentors that got me off on the trajectory. Sometimes I would look at them and think they were crazy, okay, but they proved out to be right.
Well, good. We're glad because we're getting to talk to you. So I'm glad that they did what they did. They pushed the right direction, I think.
Yes, and if you're lucky, some of them, not all of them, some of them are going to be close friends.
Yeah.
So my major professor, I met him my freshman year. Okay. I was not interested in his field, but I met him my freshman year. And when I finished up my PhD with him, we continued a very positive friendship. And I was with him, got to see him just before he passed away last year, but it was being with a good old friend. So that's one of the possibilities, but you don't always get that.
Yep.
But when you do get that, it is something special.
It is. I would agree completely. My major professor also, my advisor from college, is still a good friend. I go visit her once a year in Florida, and it's just it's become a friendship. She's still a mentor and always will be, but it includes a really nice close friendship. And I think you're right. There's a very special thing about that. They can enrich your life in great ways.
And the one other thing I would convey to young people, for those of you who have been giving something from your mentors, the expectation is that you're going to give back.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So don't be selfish. Okay? You're going to be in a position to mentor others. You're going to be in a position to help others.
Yep.
Do so.
Yep. I would agree. Love that, because that's the last part of our leadership continuum, kind of, is that at the end, it's about leading others and mentoring others and pouring into others. And don't just be like a lake, be more like a river that
That's right.
Stuff flows through. It doesn't just all land and stop with you.
That's right. Okay. And it's about engagement. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Life is not meant to be passive. It's engaging. People, organization is taking on new missions. As you heard me say earlier, I believe there's nothing more noble in life than working with noble people and noble endeavors. Okay. And the bioeconomy is one of those noble endeavors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the kind of job you can be proud you do.
Yes, yes. And you can look back and say, oh, okay.
Yeah.
It was fun and did a little good.
Yeah, whether you go through academia or industry, either way you choose to kind of move yourself, it's good work.
Where you feel you can do the best. Like for me, university worked well. Though I have to admit, there's been times I've been tempted, especially over the last 15 years, to go out and join the folks in industry because they're doing a lot of exciting things. Because the bottom line, we talk about this at the university. It's the people with the companies and economic development organizations that are making it happen.
Oh, sure. Yeah. They've got the funding to actually make it work. Yeah.
That's right. If you don't have funding, you can't do anything.
No, you can dream a lot.
uh, yes, but it's one thing to dream. It's even more special to translate the dreams into reality.
Agreed. Absolutely. Is there anything else before we close today that you want to make sure you impart to our student delegates?
No, I think I hit the key points. Be open to new possibilities, be willing to work with others. Mutual respect is part of working with others. Okay, ebb and flow. It's not going to be a perfect trajectory. Okay, and it should be fun.
That's important too.
Okay, and I can tell you, I've had a lot of fun in my career.
Well, that's good. Well, I'm hoping that for our students, your face will begin to be familiar, because I think Denny has a lot of ideas for how we might include you and engage you through this program. So I hope for our students, this won't be the last time that they get to see you and hear you. But I certainly appreciate the time that you've given us today, and I know they will as well.
It's my pleasure. Okay, I have a special place in my heart for young people.
Me too. Me too. That's one of the reasons I do this talk.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate all the time this morning, Larry.
Okay.
Have a great day.
When this is done, I'd like to see what it looks like.
I will send you a copy of the recording.
Okay.
You can share it far and wide.
Okay. Take care. Looking forward to more discussions and engagement.
Thanks, Larry. We appreciate it. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.